Have you ever felt like the more you give, the less you matter? You show up. You reply instantly. You help even when you're running on empty. And yet, the more available you are, the more invisible you become. It's like your presence is expected, not appreciated, like you're some background character in other people's lives, even though you keep playing the lead in theirs. Let me break a brutal truth to you. Constant availability is not a sign of strength. It's a symptom of conditioning. From childhood, you were taught that being helpful means being lovable, that quick replies equal loyalty, that saying yes without hesitation makes you a good person, and little by little, without even realizing it, you became addicted to being needed. But there's a catch. The more accessible you are, the less people value your time, your energy, your existence. You think you're being supportive, but to them, you're just there. Always ready. And because you've trained them to expect you, they stop seeing you. Not because you're not worthy of being seen, but because your presence has lost its weight, its rarity, its power. You've become the emotional ATM. They come, they withdraw comfort, validation, attention, and then they leave. No thank you, no reciprocation, just expectation. And here's where the damage really begins. Every time you rush to respond, even when you're drained. Every time you say yes to avoid disappointing someone, every time you ignore your own needs to meet someone else's, you're teaching the world that you come last. And soon, you start believing it too. Carl Jung once said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." Well, what are you doing? You're constantly available, emotionally, mentally, physically, thinking it'll make people stay, thinking it'll keep the peace, thinking it proves your worth, but instead of being valued, you're being used. Instead of being respected, you're being accessed. And the worst part? You don't even realize it, because the world has convinced you that being endlessly present is the right thing. But what if that's the very thing that's draining your soul? What if the real power begins the moment you stop being available? Keep watching, because the second you withdraw, everything begins to change. And then you go silent. Not out of anger, not out of spite. You just stop showing up on command. No more instant replies, no more late-night emotional rescues, no more breaking your own boundaries just to keep someone else comfortable. And suddenly, everything shifts. People start to notice your absence more than they ever noticed your presence. The ones who used to treat you like a backup plan now start wondering where you went. The energy in the room changes, not because you said anything, but because you didn't. This is the moment most people don't understand. Your silence is louder than your words, your absence more powerful than your presence ever was. Why? Because people were never prepared for your boundaries. They were never ready for you to stop playing the role they wrote for you. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming your true whole self. But here's the catch. You can't become whole while you're constantly fractured in 1,000 directions, catering to everyone's needs but your own. You can't reach authenticity while drowning in obligations disguised as relationships. So when you finally pull back, something strange happens. People get uncomfortable. They try to pull you back into the cycle. They provoke. They guilt trip. They act confused. Not because they miss you, but because they miss what you gave them. Validation, attention, emotional labor. But here's where everything becomes clear. The more desperate someone gets when you stop responding, the more they reveal how dependent they were on your reaction, not your relationship. Your unavailability forces them to face their own emptiness. Your silence reflects their lack of control. Your boundaries expose how much they relied on your lack of them. And in that space, in that tension, you finally begin to feel something you may not have felt in a long time. Freedom. Not the loud kind, not the external kind, but the quiet kind that comes when you're no longer tethered to people's expectations. The kind that feels like peace after years of emotional noise. You're no longer playing the role of rescuer, or fixer, or pleaser. You're simply being you, without apology, without permission, without guilt. And that's the beginning of power. Not the power to control others, but the power to no longer be controlled. So ask yourself, who are you when you're not trying to be everything for everyone? Who are you when you're not answering every call for help that never gets returned? That person, the one underneath the noise, underneath the expectations, that's the person Carl Jung was talking about. The whole one, the true one, and that version of you only appears when you finally decide to step away and stop being so damn available. Now watch what happens next. This is where it gets real. When you stop showing up, some people won't even notice, and that will sting. But it's a blessing, because it shows you exactly who was never really connected to you, only to the convenience of you. But others, they'll panic, they'll get irritated, they'll poke at you, guilt you, provoke you, anything to pull you back into that predictable cycle. Why? Because your reactions gave them power. Your availability gave them comfort. Your presence made them feel important, in control, validated. But now, your silence threatens all of that. The moment you become inaccessible, you become uncontrollable. And when people can't control you anymore, they'll start calling you selfish, distant, cold. Not because you've changed in a harmful way, but because their manipulation doesn't work anymore. They'll say, "You've changed. You're not there for me like you used to be. You're being unfair." But what they really mean is, "I can't use you like I used to." Carl Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." So pay attention. Who's irritated now that you've gone quiet? Who's trying to get an emotional rise out of you? Because those reactions, those sudden emotional flares from others, they're not about love. They're about control. They reveal exactly how much your role in their life depended on your compliance, your emotional labor, your unguarded presence. It's a harsh truth. Some people don't miss you. They miss the version of you that had no boundaries. They miss the version of you that dropped everything, even when you were falling apart. They miss the version that sacrificed your own needs just to keep their chaos in order. But now, that version is gone, and in its place stands a mystery. You're not reacting, you're not explaining, you're not performing, and that quiet strength, that stillness, it unnerves them. Because here's what they don't want to admit. You were never asking for too much. You were simply giving too much to people who didn't deserve it. And now you're pulling it all back, not to punish them, but to find yourself. To stop bleeding energy for people who only show up with open hands, never open hearts. So when they start acting out, trying to bait you with conflict or silence or guilt, remember this. That's not love. That's exposure. They're revealing who they are. You just weren't quiet enough before to hear it. This is where you begin to see clearly, not just who they are, but who you've been all this time. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The game is over. The mask is off. Now it's time to move forward with your energy, your peace, and your presence guarded like gold. But here's the deeper layer most people never uncover. You weren't just available out of kindness, you were available because of fear. Fear of being abandoned, fear of being seen as selfish, fear that if you stopped performing, you'd stop being loved, and so you put on a mask. The one Carl Jung called the persona, the version of yourself shaped by what others expect, what society rewards, what keeps the peace. You said yes when everything in you screamed no. You smiled when your soul was breaking. You answered messages when you had nothing left to give, and it looked noble on the outside, but inside it was slow self-destruction, because every time you betrayed your truth to protect someone else's comfort, you chipped away at your own identity. You became who the world needed you to be, instead of who you truly are. And that's the trap. This over-availability isn't compassion, it's control. Not control over others, but control over how others see you. You didn't want to be misunderstood, disliked, judged. So you performed. You gave, you bent, and in the process, you lost the most important connection of all, the one with yourself. You told yourself that being dependable was love, that being easygoing was strength, that being accessible was loyalty. But the truth, being endlessly available is a form of self-erasure. It's hiding behind helpfulness. It's saying, I'll disappear if it means you'll stay. And it works for a while, until one day you wake up surrounded by people who love the mask, but don't even see the face underneath. And that moment, when you realize you've been performing your entire life just to be accepted, it breaks something inside you, but it also sets something free. Because once you feel that emptiness, that betrayal of self, you can no longer keep pretending. That's the turning point. When you finally stop defending yourself, when you stop explaining your silence, when you let go of the illusion that being liked is more important than being whole. And yes, it will feel lonely at first, because you're shedding roles, not relationships. You're removing the need to be chosen so you can finally choose yourself. Carl Jung warned us, the persona is necessary to navigate society, but if we become the persona, we lose the soul. So now the question isn't, how do I stay loved? The question is, what part of myself am I abandoning to feel safe? Because once you stop trying to be enough for everyone, you'll realize you were never not enough. You were just surrounded by people who benefited from your doubt. And when you start showing up as your true self, quietly, powerfully, unapologetically, you'll notice something strange. You're not invisible anymore. You're undeniable. And this is where everything shifts. Not with noise, but with quiet certainty. You stop chasing, explaining, proving. You no longer feel guilty for protecting your peace, because now you understand. Your energy is not free, and not everyone deserves access to it. When you're no longer constantly available, something powerful happens. You become present to yourself. Your clarity sharpens, your boundaries solidify, the noise fades, peace takes its place. You don't beg for love anymore. You don't trade pieces of your soul just to stay accepted. Because now you see it clearly. The people who truly care don't panic when you take space. They respect it. Carl Jung reminded us, the self is born in balance, not in performance. And that balance begins the moment you stop betraying your own needs for others' comfort. So let them feel your silence. Let them adjust to your absence. Because this time, you're not disappearing for others. You're showing up for you, and that changes everything.